What's the wildest coincidence that's ever happened to you? So, I'm a doctor, and get this. My dad, who I haven't seen in 30 years, just turned out to be my patient. Crazy, right? I'm not sure if I should even tell him who I am. Here's the thing, he was my mom's drug dealer. As soon as I was born, he gave up his rights as a dad. I tried to find him when I was younger. Once he even said he'd meet me for coffee, but he bailed. I kind of gave up after that, but then this happened. A few weeks ago, I was looking at my schedule and saw a patient with my dad's exact name booked with me. I thought it was nothing, but when the appointment rolled around and I called out the name, he walked in. I tried to act normal, like he was any other patient, but honestly, hearing his voice after all this time just floored me. I had to run to the bathroom in the middle of the appointment and just sobbed. I thought about telling him who I was, but I chickened out. That night, I told my wife, Emily, everything. She was shocked but supportive. She told me this was my chance to maybe get some peace or try to have some kind of relationship with him. I don't know, man. I've spent so long being angry at him for leaving. Could I even begin on this? Seemed unlikely. She told me to just think about it. The next day at work, I was a wreck. All I could think about was me as a kid and this patient being my dad. Walking around the hospital, my mind kept going back to him. I tried to focus on my patients, but his face plus the picture I always saw at my grandparents' place just left me feeling empty. Over the years, it felt like that space had been filled with anger for a guy I never even knew. I mean, I was wishing for a sign. My first patient that day was a little boy with his dad, laughing and joking. It was really sweet and made me think maybe I should try to connect with my own dad. But then, as I was leaving the room, I heard a dad and his teenage son arguing in the waiting area. Started second-guessing it because I have had such an angry upbringing, so I was not sure if I could respond normally without arguing. Throughout the day, I paid attention to my patients. I saw a dad comforting his daughter after some bad health news, and I felt like I was missing out on something I never had. But then an old man came in alone, with no family around, which reminded me of the isolated life my dad chose all those years ago. During lunch, I just sat there, not really eating, totally lost in thought. When I was 7 years old, I loved school, but one thing always made me, I thought he was my father. I felt totally exposed, like a crab without its shell. He didn't say anything for a bit, just looked at me with a soft expression. Finally, he said he'd known for a while. I was shocked and asked why he hadn't said anything before. He looked down and said he didn't want to force anything. He thought it'd be better if I came to him when I was ready. Honestly, I was expecting him to deny it or get angry, not be so calm about it. So I asked him the big question. Why did he leave us? He looked even sadder then. He said it was a long story, and that he screwed up a lot when he was young and scared. He said he was dealing with his own problems, but admitted that leaving was the hardest thing he ever did. But back then, he thought it was the right thing to do. I felt like I was 7 again, asking my mom why my dad didn't want me. They always gave me these lame answers that just made me mad. I told him he was a coward for leaving me. A dad shouldn't just bail on his kid and wait for him to come crawling back. I didn't ask to be born. He got my mom pregnant, realized he couldn't be a dad, and split. Plain and simple. I was so tired of people defending him and making up excuses for him. When I laid it all out for him, he just sat there in silence, almost embarrassed. He wouldn't even look me in the eye. All he could say was, "I'm sorry." After this awkward silence, he said he wanted a relationship now, and that it was up to me if I wanted him in my life. He wasn't going to pressure me, and I didn't have to decide right then. I could just call him if I wanted. He was in the hospital records. I just said goodbye and went back to my patients. The next few days were chaotic. I buried myself in work, but I couldn't stop thinking about my dad. Emily noticed I was distracted and asked what was up. I told her I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to give him a chance, but another part was still furious. She said it was okay to feel both things. This was a weird point, and I'd never had to face such a big choice before. A few weeks later, I was at the hospital finishing my rounds when I saw my dad's name on the patient list again. This time, instead of dread, I just felt nervous. I couldn't avoid him forever. After his checkup, I gave him a note with my number and told him to call if he still wanted to talk. He looked at the note, then at me, and smiled as he left. I couldn't help but wonder if I was doing the right thing. A few days went by, and my phone rang. It was his number. I hesitated before answering, but I picked up. He asked how I was and if I wanted to meet for coffee. I paused, then said yes. We made plans for the next day at 2 p.m. The next day we met at the cafe. It was awkward at first, but as we talked, I started to see him differently. Not as the guy who left me, but as a messed up person trying to make things right. He told me more about his past, his problems, and all the mistakes he made. I listened, and slowly my anger turned into understanding. We kept meeting, and each talk peeled back more of our past. One afternoon, over coffee, he told me about the bad time in his life when he left. He talked about addiction, fear, and feeling like a total failure. He thought leaving was the only way to keep us safe from his self-destructive behavior. He said it wasn't an excuse, but he wanted me to know. It felt good to finally get a straight answer. He explained that he'd spent years trying to get better and hoped that one day he would find me and explain. Hearing his side was hard, but it also brought closure. Holding on to my anger was only hurting me. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting or excusing what he did, but it did mean freeing myself. One evening, as my dad and I sat on a park bench watching the sunset, he turned to me. He told me he was of the man I became and happy to get a chance to meet me. I felt a lump in my throat and thanked him. Hearing your dad say he was of you for the first time really got to me, and I started to tear up. As we sat there, the past felt less like a weight and more like a lesson. Our time together wasn't easy, and there were still doubts, but each day we built something stronger. In that, I found a sense of peace and closure I didn't know I needed. His health was still a worry, and there were times when I was scared of losing him, just as we were starting to rebuild our. One night, I stayed by his hospital bed, watching the monitors beep. It hit me how fragile life was, and how important it was to cherish the time we had. During these times, Emily was my rock. She reminded me how important family is, how important it is to give second chances, and also how important it is to find strength and forgiveness. His health got better, and we began to share more of our lives. He came to my medical conferences and seemed interested in my work. We shared dinners and holidays, and he slowly became a part of my life in a way I never thought possible. One day, as we sat together in my living room, he turned to me with a serious look. He told me he'd been holding something back. He said that when he left, it wasn't just about his own issues. There were also people he'd gotten involved with, dangerous people, and he had to leave to protect my mom. That hit me hard. He said he knew it probably wasn't the right thing to do, but he never stopped loving me. He wished he could have come back. His addiction had led him to steal and borrow money from some really bad people, and he didn't want to bring that danger to my mom's door. This helped me fully understand why, but it still hurt to think about. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stories on this channel.